You're my brother, Ed. I'd hate to send other guys after you.
The trailer for The Man Who Cheated Himself is purposefully misleading, not to divert our expectations, but a marketing ploy. Director Felix E. Feist and screenwriters Seton Miller and Philip McDonald add a creative twist on the femme fatale trope. Not unexpected for film noir set in San Francisco.
Oh, Ed, what's happened? You're so late. Is anything wrong?
In The Lady from Shanghai, director Orson Welles emphasizes Elsa's duplicity whenever he can. Yet we're still surprised at just how convoluted her scheme plays out.
I'm trying to give you a chance.
Others do away with the beguiling woman altogether.
All right, let's go.
In Dark Passage, our conditioning with 1940s black and white crime drama tells us that Vincent shouldn't climb in Irene's car. Our preconceptions lead us astray by design, and we're still suspicious halfway through the film.
Vincent Perry.
It's clear from director Feist's impressive quantity of film projects that the writer-composer-director had a gift for maximizing meager budgets. Only a handful are worth revisiting, including Deluge. A disaster movie of such epic proportions, The Hand of God was incorporated into the plot.
Shut up.
And The Devil Thumbs a Ride, salvaged by Lawrence Tierney's effortless portrayal of a psychopathic hitchhiker. Official promotion for The Man Who Cheated Himself also rides the coattails of Lee Cobb's acclaimed stage performance in Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman.
I'm the woman.
In another allusion to the Broadway hit, Lois, played by Jane Wyatt, is loosely associated with character Willy Loman's generically billed lover. Their romantic pairing seems oddly cast, although Cobb and Wyatt both appeared 3 years earlier in Boomerang, another film by Death of a Salesman director Elia Kazan.
Don't have trouble with that kind. They're easy.
The first scenes in The Man Who Cheated Himself fairly quickly dispel the femme fatale cliché.
Money. My money. He worshipped it. He adored it. He loves it so much he's ready to murder to keep it.
Lois might not be a faithful wife, but she doesn't scheme for money and doesn't seek new lovers for social status, prestige, or apparently, good looks.
You're the only one who can stop them.
As the film's own title suggests, the impetus for moral corruption exists entirely in the mind of protagonist, homicide detective Ed Cullen, whose loose moral character strongly contrasts against that of his virtuous younger brother Andy.
We've never agreed on anything yet. At least we'll be figuring a case from 2 different angles.
Another common misattribution describes Lois as a wealthy socialite.
Mary?
If her extroversion was an intended character aspect, it's certainly not advanced by the film.
How long have you been home, Albert?
About half an hour.
When we cross the proverbial tracks into her domain, Lois exists in an alternate world of closed doors, where employees constantly come and go, though are rarely seen. Amongst almost 40 square miles of Victorian and Edwardian houses crammed in tightly packed rows, her abode stands alone.
Get my hat and coat.
The sound of gunfire can't penetrate the hearing range of unseen neighbors. On a hilly peninsula where almost every structure is built on an angle, facing other houses, her residence is splayed out on a level street. Other incongruous elements, such as the ornamental frieze and iron porch columns in an overall modern design, provides another clue that Lois's world teleports into a different, or at least much more southern region of California, where the actual house was filmed.
How long have you been here?
Just drove up.
Except that geographic context is the most important indicator of wealth for her character. A forgettable upper-middle-class starter home in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles transforms into a fortress of immense privilege in land-scarce San Francisco. Lois seems aware that her own isolation leaves her vulnerable. This might be the only plausible explanation that she falls for a middle-aged detective so poor he splits rent in a single-bedroom apartment with his gainfully employed brother.
Say, I felt sorry for the wife, didn't you? Uh-huh. She's sure the type you go for.
Against Lois's better judgment, she defers to Ed Cullen's plan to cover up the accidental shooting of her estranged husband. Her initial reaction to call an ambulance is genuine.
Hospital. Get him to the hospital.
Regardless that the ostensible act of self-defense in foiling her own assassination plot was morally, if not legally justified, it's hardly the handiwork of a scheming psychopath.
Planning to murder me.
If Lois is indeed the femme fatale, she's not conscious of it, and neither are the filmmakers.
You know the truth.
The truth can get you 20 years.
San Francisco was in the 50s, as it remains today, one of the most densely populated cities in the United States. Nonetheless, screenwriters Miller and MacDonald emphasize the small-town aspect of its relatively scant space.
I don't think he did it.
A vital plot point that wouldn't be feasible in big cities like New York or Los Angeles.
Nothing to it, boys. Just spot this guy out of 500,000 people.
The elder Cullen's intimate familiarity with the city fuels his confidence of evading the very department he commands. Although in a peninsula where cops from other agencies know each other on a first-name basis.
Hello, Blair.
On a case or out for another blonde?
This same social dynamic hastens the dirty detective's own downfall.
What are you doing here?
Looking for green coupes. Some guy got knocked off at the airport. Lucky you're driving a blue one.
As expected for any film, of any budget, from any era, storefronts don't always correspond with locations or backgrounds. Nevertheless, the filmmaker's faithfulness to realism is impressive by today's standards, and borderline obsessive for an independent film noir production from 1950. The Man Who Cheated Himself trails a short-lived semi-documentary movement typified by Henry Hathaway's films of the mid to late 1940s that attempted to film scenes exactly where they were placed. And it's easy to see why director Feist took a more pragmatic approach to location shooting. In Kiss of Death, we might not be aware that Victor Mature's character exits the actual Chrysler building onto 42nd Street, since we don't see the elevator lobby or skyscraper itself within the larger context of Manhattan. In The Man Who Cheated Himself, the camera takes a step back and allows the action to approach the spectator. The city and characters swap roles to maximize the evocative settings of San Francisco. The depiction of an Italian fishing family and other surface similarities to Luchino Visconti's film, La Terra Trema, are probably coincidental. While I am not aware of the degree, if any, to director Feist's influence from Italian neorealism, the framing of this indoor dialogue shot, however synthetic, displays some of the benefits analogous to film critic Andre Bazin's theory of objective reality. Deep focus is carried out to an extreme, as the main subjects are themselves sometimes soft-focused in favor of the background. Outside the center of view, the immigrant family's wall decorations reinforce allegiance to their adopted country. In San Francisco, quick access to the shoreline wasn't governed by wealth or status. Despite lingering racial housing covenants, every neighborhood is geographically no more than a couple miles from water.
Where does he work?
A lowly fisherman, far outside the means of a Golden Gate Bridge view, had to settle for unobstructed views of the East Bay and Bay Bridge.
Gentlemen, he speaks 2 languages.
He's going to get a good job. He's going to make lots of money.
When Feist sets forth violence and greed in the context of democratization of natural beauty, he challenges the very impetus for crime in the city.
Sure, you save it to buy those sharp clothes, while your mother goes around in a cotton dress.
My old man takes care of her. You leave her out of this.
Okay.
Some scenes in The Man Who Cheated Himself are so meticulous that it's almost as if the filmmakers were afraid of offending locals.
Look at it.
Most viewers outside of the Bay Area may not know or care that Ed Cullen exits the then actual SFPD headquarters near Chinatown. But director Feist is aware that the audience sees the white DeSoto sedan behind him. Continuity is faithfully unbroken when the same distinctive late 30s grill pokes through the frame and makes a second pass after the camera change.
What happened?
You get a week starting Tuesday.
Wonderful. Santa Claus.
Long daylight shots show pedestrians and traffic too far away and numerous to be paid extras.
See ya, Ed.
This is Washington Street in San Francisco, as it was in 1950.
How's my working gal?
Happy.
The rest of the film exhibits the same attention to detail, particularly in vehicle sequences shot forward from the back seat, spliced between clips of the surroundings. The director and cinematographer are careful to project corresponding locations through the rear window during studio dialogue shots to match street footage. Second to the Eiffel Tower, few other man-made structures elicit the instant recognition of Golden Gate Bridge. It sometimes serves little more than a welcome sign, especially if you've missed all other geographical clues. Film noir tends to set Golden Gate Bridge in a more foreboding context.
Where are you taking me?
San Francisco, to my place.
And I'll expect the dress tomorrow.
The most San Francisco of all mid-century crime films, Edward Dmytryk, the sniper, bypasses it completely in favor of the Bay Bridge. Quite logically, since the action never strays much farther than Telegraph Hill.
Why did you have to do that?
But it's not just the iconic suspension bridge that cinematographer Russell Harlan was interested in. He aimed low to underscore the Civil War-era seacoast fortification tucked underneath. Golden Gate Bridge chief engineer Joseph Strauss intricately modified an arch at the bridge's base to preserve Fort Point, creating a mechanical and aesthetic wonder in its own right. On any given day, tourists snake their way through steep dirt trails and narrow roadways to view the iconic stretch of rock-lined shoreline from Vertigo, where Kim Novak's character leaps into the bay. But director Feist was far more interested in the building directly to the left, which Hitchcock either carefully avoided or kept obscured in shadow.
I'll get this out of sight.
And this decision, the site of the final action scene, is what solidifies The Man Who Cheated Himself as a film noir classic. It may be difficult to situate this movie into the visual framework of stylistic noir greats, partially informed by German Expressionism. This movie lacks that archetypal chiaroscuro, unless such conditions happen to reflect the natural state within a particular setting. Harlan emphasizes the problem-solving aspects of cinematography over temptation to conform to a particular style. In films like Gun Crazy, shot literally months prior, and also features actor John Dahl, he breaks new photographic ground in showcasing its frenetic energy, aspects of which trickle down into The Man Who Cheated Himself. Unlike in Joseph H. Lewis's sexually fueled crime spree drama, we're not awed by his prowess behind the camera. Instead of duplicating the same striking techniques exactly, he tailors the image to match the tension or emotive qualities of the storyline. In The Man Who Cheated Himself, camera work and lighting augments the suspense in Fort Point. We ignore the technical aspects of filmmaking, as the site and its endemic windy surroundings command the scene. Harlan's photography here is as understated as Lee Cobb's performance. But you'd have to watch this scoreless scene in its entirety to fully appreciate the collaboration between writers, director, cinematographer, and actors. Lovers on the Run stories often hold a mesmerizing quality of emotional clarity in the face of doom. The materiality of the outside world is stripped away to uncover the deep connection between two people.
Je regrette pas de t'aimer. Je regrette rien. Seulement maintenant, ça me fait très mal dans le ventre. Ça me brûle partout. Alors je voudrais que ça aille vite.
Although we never get that impression towards the end of The Man Who Cheated Himself.
5 minutes.
And it's not because of lack of romantic chemistry between Lois and Cullen, or the plausibility of the relationship itself. The wealthy widow is just going along for the ride. She still belongs to the world outside seaside thugs and corrupt cops. Unlike the San Franciscans, who are permanently rooted to the peninsula by family or profession, Lois's stash of money permits mobility whenever serious consequences become imminent. Although we shouldn't feel disappointed by the film's conventional 1950s conclusion, when the good guys predictably win, I conjecture that censor boards, particularly the Hays Code warning against sympathy for criminals, had little effect on the film's final outcome. Ed needed to be caught by his idealistic younger brother, not for justice to prevail, but to show that Andy is the true victim. A fresh-faced newlywed, hindered by his ability to always see the positive attributes of man, gives way to a dour countenance of cynicism. He's peeked into the depths of depravity and can never see the world the same way. The Man Who Cheated Himself shows us that the individual is his own worst enemy. This is peak film noir at what it does best.